Listen, I need to tell you something that nobody else is going to say this honestly. You're about to waste another year. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack intelligence, but because you're going to do what you did last January. You're going to make promises to yourself that feel real in the moment, and by March, they'll be forgotten. And the worst part, you already know this. You can feel it right now. But what if I told you there's a reason this keeps happening, and it has nothing to do with willpower or motivation or any of that garbage the self-help industry keeps selling you? The ancient Stoics figured this out 2,000 years ago. They understood something that modern psychology is only now confirming. That transformation doesn't come from big, dramatic changes. It comes from small, daily practices that seem almost too simple to work. Until they do, I'm going to share 7 habits with you, not 7 random tips, 7 specific practices that Stoics like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca did every single day. And here's what makes these different from everything else you've tried. These aren't about feeling better. They're about becoming someone who doesn't need to feel better, because they've built a foundation that can't be shaken. That's the difference. And by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why your past attempts failed and what you need to do differently starting tomorrow. Let's start with the first habit. And this one is going to sound strange. Every morning, before you do anything else, before you check your phone or brush your teeth or make coffee, you need to remember that you're going to die. I know, that sounds dark, but hear me out. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, started every single morning by reminding himself of his mortality. He would write in his journal some variation of this thought. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Now, why would he do that? Because when you genuinely remember that your time is limited, all the trivial nonsense that normally consumes your energy suddenly loses power. Think about the last time you were genuinely angry about something stupid. Traffic, a rude comment, someone being late. Now imagine you knew with certainty that you had 1 week left to live. Would you waste even 1 second being angry about traffic? Of course not. But here's the thing. You do have limited time. You just don't know how much. So you waste it as if it's infinite. The Stoic morning habit of Memento Mori. Remembering death isn't about being morbid. It's about clarity. When you start your day by acknowledging mortality, you automatically filter out what doesn't matter. That email that seemed urgent suddenly looks trivial. That argument you were planning to have seems pointless. The fear of what others think dissolves because you remember that their opinions and your worry about their opinions mean nothing against the backdrop of limited time. Asterisk, here's how you do this practically. Tomorrow morning, before anything else, write 1 sentence. Today might be my last day. What does that mean for how I spend it? You don't need to believe you're actually dying tomorrow. You just need to feel the weight of truth that this day is not guaranteed, that you might not wake up again. And if you knew this for certain, you would live today very differently than you're planning to. The second habit builds on the first, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. After reminding yourself of death, you need to imagine everything that could go wrong today. I'm serious. Sit there and visualize worst-case scenarios. The meeting goes badly. They reject you. You fail. Everything you're worried about actually happens. This is called negative visualization, and it's one of the most misunderstood Stoic practices. Modern positive psychology tells you to visualize success, to imagine everything working out perfectly. The Stoics said that's backwards, because when you only visualize positive outcomes, you become fragile. Life doesn't go according to plan. Things break, people disappoint you, circumstances change, and if you haven't mentally prepared for difficulty, you crumble when it arrives. But when you practice negative visualization daily, something remarkable happens. You realize that most of what you fear is survivable. Seneca wrote that the person who has anticipated troubles takes away their power when they arrive. Think about what this means. You're not creating anxiety by imagining worst-case scenarios. You're eliminating anxiety by proving to yourself that you could handle them. Right now, you're afraid of failure because you avoid thinking about it. But if you face it every morning, if you imagine it in detail and then ask yourself, Could I handle this? The answer is almost always yes. Not easily, not without pain, but you could handle it. You've handled worse. You're still here. So here's habit number 2. Every morning, write down 3 things that could go wrong today. Be specific, and then write how you would respond. Not what you hope would happen, but how you would maintain your character regardless. How you would act in a way you'd respect. This mental rehearsal doesn't make bad things happen. It makes you ready when they do. And they will. The 3rd habit is about perspective, and this one might be the most powerful of all. Every day, you need to practice what the Stoics called the view from above. Imagine yourself pulling back, not just looking down at your own body, but pulling further back to see your city, your country, the planet, all of humanity. 7 billion people, each convinced their problems are uniquely significant. And from that cosmic vantage point, see how small your concerns actually are. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He would imagine himself from space, looking down at the vast empire he ruled, and recognize that even Rome, with all its power, was a tiny speck in an infinite universe. He wrote that to see things as they truly are, you must view them from above. This wasn't nihilism. It was freedom, because when you see your life from a cosmic perspective, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, your ego shrinks, that voice telling you you're special, that your problems are unique, that you deserve better. That voice quiets. Second, your compassion grows, because you realize everyone else is dealing with the same fundamental struggles: mortality, uncertainty, fear. The person who cut you off in traffic isn't your enemy. They're another human, probably stressed about something, definitely going to die, trying to get through their day. Here's the practice. Once a day, stop what you're doing and imagine yourself from space. Write 1 sentence. In 100 years, this moment will be completely forgotten. I am one human among billions. My problems are not cosmically significant. Then ask, given that truth, how should I act? What kind of character do I want to build in this brief existence? Now let's talk about the 4th habit. And this is where theory becomes practice. You need to do something uncomfortable every single day. Not huge things. Small, voluntary discomforts that train your mind to stay steady when life inevitably brings involuntary difficulty. Take a cold shower, skip a meal, wake up earlier than you need to, say no to something you want. The specific action doesn't matter. What matters is that you choose discomfort rather than waiting for it to choose you. The Stoics believed that comfort makes you weak, not because discomfort is good in itself, but because life is inherently difficult, and if you only ever do what feels good, you'll be completely unprepared when things feel bad. Epictetus taught his students to practice voluntary hardship regularly, to sleep on the floor sometimes, to wear simple clothes too fast, not as punishment, as training. So when actual hardship arrived, they'd already built the mental muscle to handle it. This is why most New Year's resolutions fail. People go from total comfort to demanding massive change from themselves, and they have no foundation. They've never practiced discomfort, so the moment it gets hard, they quit. But if you build discomfort tolerance daily through small choices, when big challenges arrive, you're ready. Your mind has already learned that discomfort is survivable, that you can function perfectly well outside your comfort zone. That difficulty doesn't require you to quit. So habit 4 is simple. Every day, do one thing that's slightly uncomfortable. Start small, really small. Tomorrow, take your shower 2 degrees colder than usual. That's it. Just 2 degrees. Feel the discomfort. Notice that you survive it. Notice that it's actually fine. Then the next day, do it again, or choose a different small discomfort. The habit isn't the specific action. The habit is choosing difficulty when you could choose ease. The 5th habit is about what you consume, and I don't mean food, I mean information. The Stoics were obsessed with what they allowed into their minds, because they understood that your thoughts are determined by what you feed your attention to, and most people are poisoning their minds daily without realizing it. You wake up and immediately check your phone, social media, news, other people's problems and opinions and emergencies. And before you've even gotten out of bed, you've handed control of your mental state to algorithms designed to keep you anxious and engaged. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. He was right. You can't think clearly if you're consuming chaos all day. You can't build inner peace if you're constantly stimulated by external noise. The Stoics practiced information hygiene. They were deliberate about what they read, who they listened to, what they allowed to influence their thinking. And this is more important now than ever, because we're drowning in information, most of it useless, much of it actively harmful. So here's habit 5. The first hour of your day belongs to you. No phone, no email, no news, no social media, just you and your thoughts. Use that hour for the previous habits. Remember death. Visualize difficulty. View your life from above. Do something uncomfortable. But whatever you do, don't give that first hour to anyone else. Don't let strangers with agendas determine your mental state before you've even started your day. I know what you're thinking. I can't do that. I have responsibilities. People need me. I understand. But ask yourself, honestly, how many actual emergencies have happened in the first hour of your day that required immediate phone access? Almost none. What you call responsibilities are usually just habits. Habits of checking, habits of responding, habits of being available to everyone except yourself. Break those habits. Protect your morning. This one change, more than almost anything else, will transform your mental clarity. The 6th habit is ancient, but still misunderstood. Journaling. Every single major Stoic kept a journal. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus taught his students to write daily. But this wasn't diary keeping. This was philosophical practice, self-examination, working through problems on paper rather than letting them cycle endlessly in your mind. Seneca described his evening routine. When darkness fell and his wife had gone to sleep, he would examine his entire day, go back over what he'd done and said, hide nothing from himself, pass nothing by. Then he'd go to bed, finding that the sleep which followed this self-examination was particularly sweet. Asterisk, this is what journaling actually is. Honest conversation with yourself. Not performance for others, not filtered highlights for social media, but private examination of who you actually are versus who you claim to be, where you acted with courage, where you fell short, what you need to do differently tomorrow. The Stoics believed that unexamined life isn't worth living, and journaling is how you examine it. Here's how you do this. 5 minutes every evening. Write 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What will I do better tomorrow? That's it. 3 questions. Honest answers. No one ever sees this but you, so you can tell the truth. And the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is how you grow. The 7th and final habit might be the most important, and it's this: act according to virtue regardless of outcome. This is the core of Stoic philosophy. You don't control results, you control your choices. So your job isn't to make things turn out the way you want. Your job is to act with courage, wisdom, justice, and self-control in every situation, even when it doesn't benefit you, especially when it doesn't benefit you. Epictetus taught that if you want to improve, you must be content to appear foolish and simple when it comes to external things. What does that mean? It means do what's right, even when others don't understand, even when they judge you, even when it costs you something, because character is built through right action, not through successful outcomes. You can do everything right and still fail. That's life. But if you compromise your character to achieve success, you've lost something far more valuable than whatever you might have gained. This is why most people don't actually change, because they're focused on outcomes rather than character. They want the result, the success, the recognition, and when they don't get it, they quit. But the Stoic approach is different. You commit to acting with virtue regardless of whether it works. You tell the truth even when lies are easier. You do the work even when no one's watching. You help others even when they can't help you back, not because it guarantees success, but because that's who you've decided to be. So habit 7 is a daily question before every significant choice. Ask yourself, what would the person I'm trying to become do in this situation? Not what do I feel like doing, not what's easiest, but what does the best version of myself do here? Then do that, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. These 7 habits sound simple. They are simple, but simple doesn't mean easy, because every one of these requires you to do something uncomfortable, to confront truth you'd rather avoid, to act differently than habit and emotion want you to act. Most people won't do them. They'll nod along, think it makes sense, maybe try for a day or two, then drift back to comfort, to distraction, to living the same year on repeat and wondering why nothing changes. But you're still here, which means some part of you knows you're capable of more. Some part of you recognizes that you've been wasting time you can't get back, living below your potential, letting circumstances and other people determine who you are. The Stoics offer a different path, not easy, not comfortable, but real. 7 daily practices that have worked for 2,000 years, that transform slaves into teachers, emperors into philosophers, ordinary people into extraordinary humans. The question isn't whether these work. They do. The question is whether you'll do them, whether tomorrow morning you'll choose differently than you chose today, whether you're done talking about change and ready to practice it. Because that's all this is. Practice. Daily. Unglamorous. Difficult. Practice. The Stoics didn't become Stoic by learning philosophy. They became Stoic by practicing it. Every day, in every situation, until it wasn't practice anymore. It was just who they were. You're 8 days into 20. If you start these 7 habits tomorrow, by February, you'll be different. By summer, you'll barely recognize the person you were in January. And by December, when everyone else is making the same broken promises they made last year, you'll be living proof the transformation isn't about motivation, it's about practice. So here's what I want you to do. Pick one habit, just one. Tomorrow morning, do it. Then the next day, do it again. Don't try to do all 7 at once. Start with one, master it, then add another. Build slowly, build consistently, build permanently, and subscribe to the Epictetus effect, because I'm going to keep showing you exactly how ancient wisdom solves modern problems, not theory. Practice. See you in the next one.